Do you frequently find yourself wondering about the origins of the various emblems used to represent the different civilizations? I know I do. Hello there, and welcome to the channel. My name is Videosyncratic, and I've decided to launch this new series to shed some light on the symbols used to represent each of the civilizations featured in Civilization Battle Royale X. Some are much more obscure than others, but that's all part of the fun. As for how I intend to divide this up, I aim to go through it in sets of 10, so every time 10 civilizations have been knocked out of the competition, I should release a new episode. With that said, you now know which civilizations are featured in this episode, but before I begin I will just quickly point out that there should be a table of contents pinned in the comment section below, so you can skip right ahead to a particular emblem, if one may have caught your eye. Considering the unrivaled continuity of Chinese civilization, the question of how to best represent it in the Civilization series has always been a tricky one. The Shah Dynasty mod, brought to the table by Tomatech, is about as close as you can hope for, with its unique mechanic of cycling dynasties doing a fantastic job of representing the progression of Chinese history. Alas, in the Seabricks, with a reliance on cumulative bonuses and surrounded by aggressive neighbours, poor Emperor Yu was never going to be long for this world, and so he ended up being the first eliminated from the game. Due to this short span, we never did get to see many of the dynasties on offer, but they did at least live long enough to cycle through to the Shang dynasty. As it happens, I believe that the emblem used by the Shah Dynasty mod is actually taken from the Shang dynasty, as it is likely a type of ceremonial bronze vessel called a ding. A ding was a tripod cauldron that became a major status symbol in ancient China. While they may have originally been used for domestic matters, by the Zhou dynasty they had mostly become purely ceremonial items, used for ritual sacrifices to the ancestors, and the possession of which indicated significant prestige. While the majority of ding found so far date from the Shang dynasty, they likely predate this and come from the Shah dynasty. The likely reason for their usage as the emblem is due to a legend pertaining to Yu the Great, the leader of this mod. According to this myth, Yu was responsible for casting the 9 sacred ding, to be used only by the Son of Heaven. By the time of the Zhou dynasty, the number of ding one was permitted to use was determined by social status, and so only the paramount ruler was entitled to use all 9. As a result, they came to symbolise the mandate of heaven itself. However, by the end of the Warring States period and the ascendancy of the state of Qin, the 9 ding had been lost to history. The second to fall was the Minoan civilization of the island of Crete, with this specific version being the one from more civilizations. In addition to being the in-game capital of Minoa, the ancient city of Knossos is the largest Bronze Age archaeological site on Crete, and one of the best sources for what we know of Minoan civilization. The emblem used by the Minoans is taken from this site. It is an image of a bull taken from the Bull Leaping fresco, dating from around 1450 BCE. The bull is a recurring motif throughout not just Knossos, but many other Bronze Age sites throughout the Aegean and beyond. The image of so-called bull leaping shows a youth apparently leaping over a bull which is framed by 2 attendant figures. There has been much speculation over the purpose of this activity, but a popular interpretation is that it was a ceremonial sport. The colours used by the in-game emblem are also significant, as Minoan art had a strong polychromatic tradition, exemplified by their deep blues and rich reds. The Algerian civilization, mod created by DGS Henninger, was the third to be defeated, although their religion of Nestorianism, the second to be founded in-game, lives on and is indeed positively thriving, especially now that televisions have actually been invented to make televangelism possible. The symbol Algeria used to represent itself was taken from a part of the real-life national emblem of Algeria. The central part of this emblem depicts a traditional symbol called a hamsa atop an olive branch, and it is this motif used in the Seabricks. The hamsa is an amulet in the shape of a hand, important in both Arabic and Berber culture, and hence it became a national symbol for Algeria. Hamsa comes from an Arabic word meaning 5, referring to the 5 fingers of the human hand. While it often has religious connections, its origins are obscured enough so that it can transcend religious boundaries. A good illustration of this comes from some of its alternative names. For example, it is known as the Hand of Fatima amongst Muslims, after the daughter of the Prophet, while it is also sometimes known as the Hand of the Virgin Mary amongst Christians. The version of this symbol used by DGS Henninger more closely resembles the Hamsa on the predecessor emblem used until 1976. In contrast, the modern variant has the end fingers rounded off, while the bottom of the hand is drawn to a sharp point, ostensibly to represent the beak of a dove as it carries the olive branch. Interestingly, the resistance movement actually led by Abd al-Qadir, the leader of this Algeria mod, actually had a seal of its own. However, given both its complexity and also its similarity to other symbols used in-game, I can certainly appreciate why the Hamsa was chosen instead. Tragically, the 4th civilization to be knocked out of the contest was Senussi Libya, created by a denizen of this very sub, J. Mangalo. Apologies if I J-mangled your name there. Libya were quite cruelly bullied by all of their neighbours and didn't really stand much of a chance, but similar to the case of Algeria, they were the first to found a religion, and so Sunni Islam has since long outlived them. The emblem of Senussi Libya is derived from the coat of arms of the Senussi order, comprising a vertically orientated silver star and crescent framed in a circle topped with a small golden crown. The Senussi were, and indeed still are, a Sufi tariqa, a kind of religious or political order, that formed in Libya and Sudan in 1837. Originally concerned with the perceived decline of Muslim integrity, by the beginning of the following century, the order had primarily become occupied with fighting the many different colonial powers attempting to expand into the region. In addition to the presence of the star and crescent, the usage of the colour green is traditionally associated with Islam, as it represents paradise in the Quran. The 5th civilization to leave the competition after a generally uninspiring performance was Scotland under Robert the Bruce, another mod created by more civilisations. The emblem used by Scotland is easy to analyse, as it is a thistle, which is still in use today as the national flower of Scotland. The thistle was used since at least the reign of Alexander III in the late 13th century, and it first appeared on silver coins minted by James III in 1470. Meanwhile, the chivalric Order of the Thistle, second only to the Order of the Garter in the order of precedence, was founded by James VII and II in 1687, although he asserted that he was recreating an alleged earlier order that had since fallen into abeyance. The association of the thistle with Scotland has a legend explaining its origin. According to this tale, an army of Norsemen were planning on ambushing the Scottish army under cover of darkness. However, one barefoot invader stood on a thistle and cried out, alerting the Scots to their presence. Putting aside questions of this legend's veracity for now, some sources suggest that this was actually the Battle of Largs, which took place in 1263. Despite the results of this battle being inconclusive, the battle was later romanticised, as it did mark the departure of King Haakon IV of Norway, who had made a nuisance of himself by raiding coasts around the country. However, Haakon had actually planned to return the following spring, but unexpectedly fell ill and died before he had the chance to, and so luck would end up saving the day a second time. The 6th civilization to shuffle off this mortal coil was Oman, yet another mod brought to us by more civilizations. However, unlike Scotland, at least Oman managed to impress, even if only briefly. The symbol of Oman is also an easy one to analyse, as it is still in use today as the national emblem of Oman, which also appears on the Omani flag. The national emblem began its life as the symbol of the House of Al Said, the royal family of Oman, which still rules the country today. The symbol itself shows a sheathed handjar dagger suspended on an ornate belt and superimposed upon 2 crossed swords. The symbol represents the historic weapons used by the people of Oman, and the khanjar is especially iconic. The khanjar is a curious J-shaped dagger, likely originating in the late 17th century and later being spread further from Oman by the Ottoman Empire. The khanjar is still a popular item throughout much of the Arabian Peninsula, where it is an integral part of traditional dress. Its use in Oman is especially prevalent, with it being featured on currency, postage stamps, government buildings and vehicles, roundabouts, and much more. The seventh of our civilization selection to be defeated was William Lyon Mackenzie King's Canada, the first JFD mod to be eliminated in the Seabricks. The emblem used by this version of Canada is quite simply the crest of the royal coat of arms of Canada. Canada is still, at least for now, a monarchy, with the Queen of the United Kingdom also using the title of Queen of Canada, alongside her many, many, many other titles. As a result, the arms of Canada are very similar to the royal coat of arms of the United Kingdom, with perhaps the most notable difference being the addition of a sprig of 3 maple leaves to the escutcheon. However, it is the crest which we are interested in. In the arms of the UK, the crest is a lion stattent guardant, that is, standing with its head facing towards the onlooker, and in this instance, wearing St Edward's crown. This crest is shared with the arms of Canada, so to differentiate them further, the Canadian lion was made to hold a maple leaf in its front right paw, and this is the image used on the Canadian emblem in the Seabricks. The maple leaf, which should have 11 points when used officially, has long been regarded as the symbol of the people and lands of Canada, dating to at least 1834. As I found out when researching the history of Canadian symbols for an earlier video, there was actually quite a bit of pressure for the maple leaves to be colour green, as the red leaves were associated with death and decay. However, the colour red eventually won out and would become one of the national colours of Canada, as reflected by their autumnal colour scheme used in this particular mod. The 8th civilization to leave the building was the culture of Poverty Point, a civilization brought to the fore by Tomatech, and one of the few civilizations of the Seabricks to represent a prehistoric culture. Unfortunately, Poverty Point were very sleepy in-game, settling the same number of cities as the Shah dynasty, despite living for 17 more parts. However, if they have left any mark on the game, then it is surely through their unique effigy mounts, which should hopefully continue to beautify North America for eras to come. I initially had some difficulty identifying what the Poverty Point emblem depicts, besides a rather nice geometric design. However, I am now fairly confident that it shows an artefact termed a Poverty Point object, or PPO for short, by archaeologists. The vast majority of artefacts discovered at the Poverty Point site are small baked shapes. With the exception of larger pieces with functions made obvious from their shape, it has been experimentally determined that many of these Poverty Point objects were used as a cooking aid, being placed in earth ovens to better retain heat. As such, I think it is safe to say that Poverty Point are almost certainly the only civilization to have what is in reality a cooking appliance to represent them. Some civilizations preferred decapitations, others cooking aids. Who are we to judge? Most of these objects were made from a fairly clay-rich sediment called loess, as workable stone is virtually non-existent at the Poverty Point site. The dusty shades of brown used by Poverty Point are likely a reference to this material. The 9th civilization to be sent to the next world was unlucky Ndongo. Featuring the only leader returning from Mark II, Ndongo built a generally decent empire and put up a good fight, but being located near the centre of a continent and repeatedly being at war with literally every single one of your neighbours really didn't do them any favours. The emblem used by Ndongo makes for an unusual choice, as, at least as far as I'm aware, this symbol has little to do with the historical state of Ndongo, and instead comes from an ultimately rejected design proposed to replace the Angolan flag in 2003. I do see some reasoning to this due to the etymological link between Ndongo and Angola. The rulers of Ndongo went by the title of Angola, or in full, Ngola a Kiluanje, Due to a seeming misunderstanding by the Portuguese, they ended up applying the term Angola to the entire geographical area, and the name has stuck to this day. Anyway, the proposed flag design from 2003 was intended to be more optimistic than the fairly austere machete-bearing red and black flag still in use. This proposal featured a stylised 15-rayed sun at its centre. This sun was inspired by the artwork of Chintundo Hulu granite caves, located in southwestern Angola. These cave paintings were created from the Paleolithic period through to the Neolithic, possibly by some of the first people to have ever inhabited the area. The 10th civilization to go the way of so many before them was the Sultanate of Sulu, another civilization brought to us by a member of this very sub, in this case, cardboard. Despite a promising start, Sulu proved to not be much more effective than wet cardboard, although that may be quite an unfair assessment, as they did face the full force of the mighty goo, and still managed to put up a decent fight nonetheless. The emblem used by Sulu is taken from the flag used by the Sultanate in the late 19th century. The rather fetching colours of pink and white they use were also taken from this flag. As with many symbols used in national iconography, there is much debate over its origins and even what it's supposed to represent. The most common interpretation, and the one used by the current pretender to the Sultanate, is that it is a stylised representation of the entrance to Mecca. Some scholars contend that it was not originally intended as this, however, as it wasn't until 1882 that the first Sultan of Sulu made the Hajj, and the flag was long in use before then. As for what it could represent instead, alternatives vary quite wildly, ranging from it instead being the doors to the city of Jolo, the administrative centre of the Sultanate and the modern-day capital of the province of Sulu, to it possibly even being a stylised grave marker of a much earlier ruler. With all of that said and done, there you have the emblems of the first 10 civilizations to fall, hopefully explained to your liking. I will be back again when the next 10 are down, although at the rate things are going, that will be a lot sooner than I originally expected. I hope to see you again in the next episode, but if you like listening to me attempt to explain the iconography of cultures, past and present, you may like my series examining the flags of Europa Universalis IV in a similar manner. Thank you for watching the video, especially if you're still watching at this point. I also would like to take the opportunity to give special thanks to Jay Mangalo and Cardboard Mech for creating 2 of the mods featured in this video, the Honesty Fish for creating these excellent maps to show the maximum extent of each civilization, and of course the entire Blue Cassette team for running the Seabricks for all of us to enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider liking and sharing, and possibly even subscribing if you would like to see more content like this. Additionally, I'm on Twitter, so you can follow me there if you would like to, and my inbox is always open, so just pop me a message if you want to get in touch. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you around the sub. Ciao!